Well, cool. I want to talk to you guys today about proposals because I used to struggle a lot about proposals, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are struggling about them as well. I mean, one of the things when we started getting really good, we were able to close 80% of our marketing proposals. Now, the key is closing 80% of the ones you actually want, not the ones you don't want, or the ones that don't fit that certain quality, right? And the other thing, too, we were able to do proposals in 15 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes. A lot of you guys are spending a lot of time on proposals. And I'll walk you through a couple of different strategies that work for me. Now, everybody thinks they're unique and they're the most interesting agency in the world. And I thought my proposals were amazing at this time. And at this time, I think we were in business for about 4 years. So we were still messing up everything. Now, we were messing up everything, many, many years later, we were just messing up different things. And I remember getting this call one day and chatting with them, and they were talking to me about all the things that they wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. And you never feel like that you just rocked it, right? You get off that call, and you're like, I completely nailed it. And I thought at the time I was going to go to this small office and do a pitch because I rocked the initial phone call, and they wanted me to come in and present what we could do and how we can help them out. And so as I was presenting to them, I got to their office, and this was their office. And I looked at the boardroom, I go, man, this is really different than the desk I really pictured in my head. And they seated me, and I'm like, man, this is a big room. And the conference room was a lot bigger than this. And then all of a sudden, everybody starts coming in, and they start filling up the seats. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And so I went into my presentation. This is me a long time ago. Not really. I couldn't find an old picture of me, right? So I'm presenting the project. I'm going through everything. I feel it's going fantastic. And so they go, Jason, we really like what you're presenting. Can you get us a proposal? I said, yeah, sure. So I literally pull out of my bag a couple pieces of paper that I pre-printed that had fill in the blank. And I literally started going, well, how many pages do you guys want? And doing this. And literally they looked at me like I had three legs and 8 arms, and they laughed at me, right? I mean, this was the reaction I got. And I was like, what is going on here? And I was like, who is this company? So I go back to the office. We were about 5 people at the time. And they were like, well, what happened? And I was like, man, I had some meeting, and they laughed at me when I presented the proposal, and I wrote the proposal. And they were like, well, who was it? I was like, this small company, or I guess they're a big company, I don't know, Berkshire Hathaway. So I learned a couple things, and I knew I had to change, right? I didn't meet with Warren. I wish I did. Maybe one day I'll work with him and do some, and I can tell him the story of how his employees just laughed at me, and maybe I'll get his business later on. So obviously we didn't win the business, but I knew something had to change, and I knew I needed to create the right system in place. And there's a couple different things that you need to do when you're actually going through the proposal. Because what I realized is if you submit a bad proposal, you're going to kill the deal. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you is the proposal won't win you the deal either. So many of you think, hey, I'm going to do a proposal, and it's going to win me the deal. Like, I'm going to do the best proposal in the world, and I'm going to send it to them. It's not. I can promise you that. And the biggest mistake that I realized, too, at the time, I didn't realize what my closing percentage was. I didn't have a CRM. I didn't know. I was just looking at proposals going, I'm going to do this proposal for this client, and I'm going to take what's out of this proposal and put it in another. and I was spending a lot of time doing proposals. And I wanted to create a system. And I didn't want to look like this really sleazy guy, right? And I'm sorry if I'm losing my voice. I was like, man, this is going to rock this presentation if I lose my voice. So sorry if I'm raspy. But I didn't want to look like this really slimy guy. And my clients kept calling me, or the prospects kept calling me, and they were like, show me the money, right? I want you to do this. I kept having clients call me saying, and I know this sounds familiar, I want you to do this really unique idea. It's like a Google, a Facebook, and YouTube put together, but it's different, and it's for this particular niche, and I have like $10 or $100 or $1,000 budget. And I'm like, really? And I knew I needed to do something different because I was frustrated, and probably a lot of you guys are frustrated as well. And so what I wanted to do, and what I did, is I wanted to come up with a system. And one of the things I started doing differently was changing the conversation right off the bat. And changing a conversation, the easiest way to change the conversation is to ask questions and figuring out what are the right questions I need to ask. Now, a lot of you spend a lot of time with a prospect, I gather, because I work with so many of you guys, on a prospect. You think he's the perfect prospect. You work on this proposal. You present it to them. You come in many, many times only to find out that they don't have the budget, right? Or they're not the authority, or they wanted something tomorrow. And it's pretty frustrating, right? I mean, I cannot remember how many times I'm like, I don't ever want to do a proposal again. I almost wanted to get out of the agency space because of this. And so what I developed was a system called NBAT. And for the ones that have heard me talk, I talk about this a lot or on the podcast. But it was an easy way for me to really kind of qualify someone within the first 10 minutes. So the first one is what is their need, right? What do they actually need? And does this match up with what I can actually, deliver? Now, in the very beginning, you're going to take on everything. But as your business grows and you keep scaling, you need to say no to the things that you're not good at. Like we would get calls and they'd be like, hey, I want you to do this iPhone app. We'd never done an iPhone app. I didn't even know what an iPhone app was at the time. I was like, sure, we could do that. And we bombed it. And we looked like an ass. And so you want to make sure, I always have the rule of thumb. I say, if you were only going to be paid on performance, what would that perfect client be, and what would you deliver to them? And that's the biggest thing that you need to do. The next thing is the budget. How many of you here, you go through the presentation, and they say, well, we don't have a budget. I want to see a show of hands, all right? What do you guys do? Do you guys just move on, all right? A lot of you do. I used to, and I say, oh, okay, no problem. We'll get you a proposal. So I'm going to give you 2 ways to get the budget every single time. And I'm going to tell you what you can do if they don't give you the damn budget. So the first one is like, all right, Mr. Client, for what you want to do, what's the budget that you're trying to stay around? And they're going to say, I don't have a budget. Cool, I love working with people that don't have a budget so we can spend countless amounts of your dollars, really do a lot of testing, and really be innovative. And I'd shut up for a second. And I'd be like, so you do have a budget? And they'd be like, yeah. And then what I would do is be a reverse auctioneer. And I'm saying, all right, so I need to know some kind of range of what you're trying to stay around. Are you trying to stay around 200,000, 100,000, 80,000, 60,000, 50,000? Right? And I go down. And you got to start high. Do not start with like $5,000 a month retainer, because you can only go down. And then if they don't fit the build, I would be very, very nice. And I would say, I cannot help you at this time. But then what I would do is I would send them to my competition that I knew could do a good job. And I would even do an intro. Now, I wasn't getting a referral, but I knew if I help them out, when they get bigger, they'll come back to me. And I did do this with one small company that I think all of you guys know if you guys have kids. So this one company came to me. They didn't have the budget. And I said, we can't help you out. But they had a great idea. It was about this book over the Christmas time that is about a small elf on the shelf. And I said, at this time we can't help you out. But they came back and they were a really big client for us. So just think about helping them out, the budget. The other one is you want to make sure you're talking to the authority. And I'm going to give you a really good question that you can get and figure that out. So because, look, you're going to be talking to CMOs, you're going to be talking to VP of marketing, you're going to be talking to people that you think are a decision maker. And they're going to say, yeah, I'm the decision maker, right? You're asking, and they're going to say that. I'm like, cool. The way to tell is to say, how does this objective, this marketing objective, how does this align with your overall company objective? How does this align with your company objective? And then what they're going to say, I don't know. Well, cool. Well, who the hell knows? And they're going to say, oh, Bob. I'm like, who's Bob? He's the CEO. Cool. Can we get Bob on the phone? And then I asked him very nicely in order to do that. Because if you don't, those people are going to be your worst salespeople. You got to talk to the decision maker. That's the main reason we never did any RFPs. Now, how many people do RFPs? How many people love RFPs? Right? There's 2 winners to every RFP. The one that wins it, anybody know the second one? First one out. Now, I'm lying to you about doing RFPs. We did do RFPs on one occasion if we wrote them, because we wrote them for all of you to fail, right? We wrote them for ourselves, or unless we had it in. And that's what I want you guys to think. Now, if you're going after government contracts, I certainly understand you got to go through our RFP, but we didn't work with the government. I didn't want to, especially now. The other thing is timing, right? You want to make sure that their expectations are right. Why do you want to take on a bad prospect that's going to be your worst nightmare for your client? We've all done it. We've taken on the wrong clients, and they've just blown up, and they've cost you more money than they've actually, you actually received. They gave you a bad reputation. After I qualified them, I said, okay, you are the right prospect as of now. The other thing I would go into is the 3 I's. And rather than going into what I used to do is be like, what's your budget? And be like 10,000. I'm like, cool, we can do a website for this. What other websites do you like that we can copy because we're unoriginal and we have no process? That happened until we came up with the right process. So the first question I would ask is, what's the biggest issue? Why are you coming to us? How can we help you? What's the biggest challenge that you're having? Because I want to understand their pain. Because I can present any kind of price to them, and price is not an issue. I could charge someone $1 million for a proposal or for a website. And if I knew their biggest issue and I could make them $1 billion, you think they're going to say yes? Hell yeah, they are. So I want to understand what's their biggest issue. The next one I want to make sure that they understand, or that I understand, or help them understand, is what is their big impact? What's this big challenge costing them? Or if I actually succeed in my job in helping them, what results are they going to get? Now, a lot of times they'll say, I don't know. And that could be a telltale sign that you're not talking to the decision maker as well. And you really need to say, all right, well, who knows? Who can we talk to about what's the impact? And then you can kind of I always kind of play Columbo on different things for the older people in the crowd like me. And I'd be like, well, let's kind of examine this. So if you're a digital marketer and you're doing Infusionsoft or whatever technology or SEO or pay-per-click, you're like, well, how much is a lead worth to you? Let me help you calculate what the cost per lead is or what the cost is worth to you. And then when you do that, then you could say, oh, cool, so how many leads are you getting now? And you're trying to figure out what's their current situation and what do they actually want. And you're trying to bridge that gap. So then you're going, okay, so you get 10 leads a month now. That's not good, right? And you're talking to them. It's like, cool, I know a way that we can produce 100 leads. And every lead is worth X. So if my math is right, is that worth $1 million a month to you? Is that right? And I'm asking questions. I'm not telling them anything. And they'll say yes. And then I'll follow that up with one more question, and I'll say, well, how important is that to you? Because if you go back to my original conversation with Berkshire Hathaway, if I made them $1 million, that may not be important to them. They may have other things that are more important to them that they want. Now, a proposal is very similar to a phone number. You have to get it in the right order. If you get it put it in the wrong order, which a lot of you have, including myself, I had this in the wrong order, you're not going to win, right? Because a proposal can lose the deal for you, but it's not going to win the deal. Remember that. But it can lose it, like especially if you write out the proposal like I did. And there's an order that you need to follow. And the first thing that I want to tell you to do, you remember I told you that I only spent 15 minutes on a proposal? It's because I built templates. I built one master template of everything that we did, rather than having a folder of 100 different proposals that we did over here. And then every time I would have to go into the proposal folder, look at it and go, man, where did this go? And how do I put it together? And it slows up the process. I mean, literally, we'd have a proposal where we could do find and replace. And then we had certain sections on the proposal that we could customize. The other thing that would speed up the process is doing some discovery calls with them and taking really good notes where we're actually building the proposal with them. So if you attended my session yesterday, I really talked about kind of the foot in the door. Don't pitch the huge proposal. Don't pitch the $100,000 deal. Like when we were pitching Lotus Cars, we didn't pitch the huge deal. We picked the discovery process. We'd even send them a proposal for the discovery process. We literally just said, if you want us to do a discovery and meet with you and show you and map everything out, it's $2,500 to do it. And we would just get a check or a credit card from them. Even in today, I tell my clients, you can create a simple order page for people to do. You don't have to send them a proposal for this particular service. When you get to the bigger ones, like the $1 million proposals, the $100,000 proposals, you are, but you're just setting them up in order to help them first. And then once you do the discovery and you say, hey, does everything look good? Do you want our help on that? You're basically getting their buy-off before you even draft the proposal. And then you draft the proposal, and I'll walk you through the order in order to do that, to win the deal, and to make sure that you don't get burned on scope creep and all the work and losing all the profit. What we would also do is on the proposal, we'd set up the variables so we could change it very quickly. Client name, obviously. And a lot of the cool things, and there's a lot of cool vendors, Proposify, highly recommend it. You can use those cool softwares. But you got to use them in the right way. And the last step I'm going to tell you today, you'll totally get. But that's the best way. And the last step I'll tell you, it will stop all of your prospects from going silent after you send the proposal. Okay? That'll be the open loop I create with you guys. But I'll tell you the secret. So when you send a proposal, you'll never be like, hey, I can't reach you. Right? And that always happens. The other thing that you need to do is take out all the crap that you don't need in this proposal. So remember, I'm telling you to create this template. Well, remember, you're going to have everything you actually do. Well, you're only recommending what the client actually needs. And that's another key thing I want you guys to take away. When you're chatting with someone, you want to offer what they actually need, not what you actually want to sell them. And they'll be able to sniff it out big time. And you want to break up your proposal in sections. And I'll walk you through how some of these sections were. The next thing you want to do is you want to create an executive summary. Now, most people actually get the executive summary wrong. And they state what's in the proposal. But it's not to state what's in the proposal, it's what the clients actually want. And I'd always start off the executive summary kind of using NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So I would always state off with 2 obvious facts that they know is true. So I would basically say, your website is the central hub of what you're doing. And you're not generating any leads right now, and that needs to change. And so they're like, yes, yes. And then whatever I tell them next, they're going to believe it. Now, don't scam them or anything like that. Don't use this for bad purposes, right? This is a superpower. But you start priming them for this. The next thing you want to do is restate what they actually want. Because as you're going through the 3 I's, the biggest issue, the biggest impact, how important is it to them, you're reinstating what they actually want. And then you want to put down, why do they want it? If you're not asking those questions, like if they just come to you and just say, I want a new website. I want you to generate more leads for me. Why do you want that? Well, I want to grow my business. Well, what do you think we need to do? And why do you want that? It's such a powerful question, and you can use this against them later on. So we've all sent the proposal where we've called them up a couple months later or a couple weeks later because we haven't heard from them to say, hey, I'm just checking in on the proposal that you got. How many people have done that? All of you. I've done that a lot. And it's basically you should take off all your clothes, wear a big bag right here and saying, I am a beggar, please give me money. That's a begging strategy, right? Bad visual, right? You're like, ah. But with the 3 I's, how you could use it is say, hey, Jim, I haven't heard from you in a while. I presume you solved that $1 million problem that we were talking about. No, you haven't solved that. Well, is that still important to you? Cool, I'm glad I called sign here. That's how we would follow up. Other follow-up strategies would be, hey, I know you were really interested in the Power Editor and what it could do. Well, they just made a major update, and I wanted to update you on it of kind of, we can connect this to Shopify, which is pretty cool, and I think it can increase your e-commerce by 25%. Is that important to you? Cool, yeah, let's go ahead and meet, sign here. Okay? That's how you do the follow-up. Don't call and say, I'm checking in. Now you guys you're going to have horror stories. And then also describe what they're going to get. What does life look like after they work with you or after you actually fulfill on your promise? And you do all this in the executive summary. And then the last part, I am the executive summary. And this is where we spent all of our time, by the way, okay, if you can't tell. Everything else was kind of templated and kind of laid out. But describe how it's going to work, right? Describe that plan. Just don't be like, we're going to generate more leads for you, and it's going to be a magic show, and it's going to voila and pop up. The next part, you want to really list out your services and the deliverables that you're actually going to do. And what we would do, since we did a lot, and a lot of you say you guys are a full-service agency. Now, we were a full-of-shit agency when we said we're a full-service agency because we couldn't do everything. So stop doing that because everybody knows, yeah, you can't do everything. And they're going to, like it worked back in like 99 when I started because there was like one or two services that we could actually do. You're like, get them on Overture for people that remember Overture. And you could bid against your competition, but no, I like that stuff. But you want to categorize your services. So we would categorize them by design, marketing, maybe development, and I'll show you what it'll look like in a second. We were really, really descriptive. And the reason why we were really, really descriptive on our proposals was to protect us for scope creep. How many people just get killed on profit from change after change after change? It starts in the fucking design of the proposal and the proposal process, in the sales process. You can start avoiding this big time. So get really descriptive. The other part is describe your methodology. Remember yesterday I talked about describing a plan or just telling them you have a plan. Well, this is where you can actually describe how it actually works so they fully understand what's going to go on. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to meet on the strategy. And we're going to have a kickoff meeting. In this kickoff meeting, we're going to ask for X, Y, and Z. And then we're going to move into the next design, development, deploy, whatever it is. But describe your process. Next, you want to list out all your deliverables. Be very descriptive so it protects you. Whether it be, how many versions do they get on the design comps, on the landing pages? How many emails are we going to write for them? How long are the campaigns? Everything we're doing, the logo, colors, all that kind of stuff. List everything out. Because then what you can actually do is then list out the stuff that's not included. And these are the upsells. So at the time, we would list out and say, well, responsive web design or bilingual site. We're going to do this site in Italian, French, and English. List out the number of pages. I remember one time, man, I thought this website was like 20 pages. Bid like maybe 50,000 for it. Turned out to be like 2,500 pages. We were screwed. And so then I started to be really descriptive. And as you're doing the proposals and you're building your business and you're losing money on certain things, just adjust the proposal template going forward. It's fine. You're going to mess up. Don't be afraid to mess up. So you'll see, this is part of the old proposal that we'd have. We'd start with web design and just start listing out what's included. You can kind of see the variables that we would have. Now you'll notice there's no pricing. The biggest thing I can tell you, do not list your pricing out on this particular page. And so when you go to a client and you go, here's the proposal, and what are they going to do? They're going to scroll through and you're going to see pricing right off the bat. And especially if you have your services categories like this, they are going to see the price and they're going to be turned off right away. Right? They're not going to be able to see other things. So do not list out your pricing at all on this section, going through all your services. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it at the very end. Okay? You're going to create like a table and say, look, here's all the pricing that we have. And what we would do on the template too is we would take out the stuff that was not included. So if we were just doing web design and the Sitefinity, we would just leave those two in there. And we would list that out. But we already walked them through exactly how everything was going to work. And we almost got their buy-in before we even got to the proposal. That's the key. And then what we would do is we would list out the reoccurring as well, just so it was really easy, because you don't want to confuse the client. Now, you'll also notice I did not give them options. How many people do options? Okay, change it today. If you have options, you're making them make two decisions, right? Should I work with them and which one should I do? And it's challenging. And also when you have packages or options for this, you look like a commodity to the outside world. And you got to think about too, if you want to sell on value, if you want to position yourself as the leader and the expert, they're looking at you for what they need to do. So don't give them options. Start with the highest one that will actually help them and that they actually need. And if they don't want that, and they say, man, that's just too much, what changed from what you told me on the budget? And if they say, well, that budget got changed, don't ever discount your prices. Don't reduce your prices. But you say, okay, well, we can take this out, and this out, and this out in order to get you to the number. And see if it makes sense. And if it still doesn't, then walk away. The biggest thing you can do is walk away. Now, you'll notice the about your agency is in the very back of the proposal. It is not the second page after the cover letter. No one cares about you. They really don't. Not yet. They want to know that, like I talked about yesterday, make them the hero in the story that you're telling on the proposal. Put them first, because if you make them Batman, or if you're Batman, you make them Robin. No one wants to be the sidekick, okay? So what we would do is tell them about the company, why we existed, when we were formed, right? I would have a list of the people that are actually involved on their project. What little cool things. We came up with really cool titles like Mission Controller. My title at the time, we would change it all the time, like Company Commander. So they would feel the fun that we would have, the culture that we would do. And the reason, too, I'll give you a hint. The reason why we would make up titles, first, it was cool, it was fun. Second reason was the blood-sucking recruiters could not find my employees. I didn't want people to know who my project managers were, my creative directors, my art directors, all the people that we had. So I wanted to be like, yeah, have fun with that on LinkedIn. because I can't stand recruiters. And then I would also go through the experience that we had. So I would list out the relevant experience that was relevant to them. So if we were going after Lotus Cars, I would say, or if we were going after Porsche, I would say, hey, this is what we did for Lotus Cars. If we were going after Home Depot, like this is what we did in the home improvement space. I would also tell them why we exist. The same reason why you tell your employees why you exist. You want to be around people that believe in the same thing. That's why there's, I work with a client that goes after, nonprofits. And that's very important to tell them why they actually exist. Be like, we want to help make the world a better place. And then they can align with it. They believe you, and, they'll give you money, and you actually help them out. Now, I list out awards. How many people have bought a car before? Okay? Did you buy a car because the car salesman had a ton of awards on his walls? Actually, you don't want to go to him for that. Awards are complete bullshit, and they're stupid. There's a great YouTube video of Jerry Seinfeld, and he's getting an award. You should look it up. It's like, awards stink. And it's hilarious, and it's the same thing. So don't list your damn awards. Like, I go to your websites, and I'm like, and I used to do this. I can make fun of you. I'd be like, oh, cool, you got an Addy Award. I've only lost one deal, and it was to Mellow Mushroom, and I'll never eat there ever again. They're a big pizza place. And they're in Atlanta. They say, Jason, I want you to show you how creative you are. And I'm like, okay. And they were like, well, here's the map. And like a map. I was like, a map to get to your office. And they were like, they kind of treated it like a camping thing. I was like, oh, I'm going to show you how creative I am. I'm going to dress up as a camper, like the big thing, the socks, all this. So I come walking up, and they think I'm like a hitchhiker from the side of the road. And I'm like, no, I'm Jason from Solar Velocity. Hey, let's go. And they didn't go with me. I showed them how creative we were. I guarantee you no one else dressed up as a camper. And they said, Jason, we didn't choose you. We loved everything you did, but we didn't choose you. We went with a company that won 22 Addy Awards, and we want to win an Addy Award. I'm like, you're an idiot. So there's only one deal. Now, I probably lost some weight because I haven't eaten their pizza in like 16 years. The other thing that's important is have the contract in the proposal. Now, if you're working with the bigger deals like AT&T and Hitachi and all those guys that we worked with, they're going to have separate MSAs, master service level agreements. Their lawyers are going to own you. You're not going to be able to negotiate those contracts if you want to work with them because there's so many people that want to work with them. But for everybody else, you're going to have your own agreement. Put that at the back of the proposal. So as you're reviewing the proposal with them, they can actually freaking sign it. Don't be like, hey, go think about it. Good job, right? And while you're actually going through the proposal, remember, you've already got the buy-in in the very beginning before you actually wasted your time doing your proposal. That's why our close rate was so high. And then after, be like, cool, sign here. And when you put the pressure on them to sign, they're going to give you objections. And you want to ask objections and say, cool, well, let me think about it. And the typical response we would do is like, cool, I certainly understand that you want to think about it. What do you have to think about it? Usually when it comes down to people thinking about it, it's they don't trust us or they don't trust you actually doing it. So which is it? They'd be like, what? And then they would tell you the objection because you're trying to figure out, is it a put-off or is it an objection? And they may have an objection over pricing, and then you can adjust your proposal or take out things in order to make it work. The last part, you remember I told you that you're going to send the proposal template. You're not going to hear from them ever again, right? For a lot of people. In order to stop this, do never send the proposal. Never send the proposal ahead of time. Always review it with them. If you don't take anything away from today, take this one away. Don't ever send the proposal. Now, clients will call you up and say, hey, I want to work with you. Send me a proposal. Cool. When can you actually meet? And I'll review the proposal with you. And then they'll say, well, just send it over. No, that's not how we work. And be able to walk away. I can't tell you how many people and how often this saved us money. So be able to walk them through the proposal. And then as you're walking them through the proposal, you're making sure that they're seeing the right things. And you can see if they have questions. So every section I walked them through, I was like, do you have any questions here? And they'd say, no, perfect, cool. And then by the time I get to the done, I'll be like, are you ready to sign? Yeah. Because I've already gone through all the buying signals, and it's very crucial. So to wrap up, and I'll take questions in just a second if we have a mic runner, or maybe I'll run the mic since I did my own intro. You want to, great. It's late, everybody's drinking. I should have, right? And I'll drink after. So you want to create a master template, first step. Next one, you want to create the executive summary. And this is where you're going to put most of the time that you put. You want to list and segment everything that you're doing so it's easily understandable and you can actually walk them through it. You want to put the proposal pricing after. You want to have your about your agency at the very bottom. I mean, this is literally before your contract, okay? And then actually have the contract, have it where they can actually sign, put it on a cool proposal software, and don't send the freaking proposal. Walk them through it. And if you want these slides, or if you took enough pictures, you can always text this, and it'll send you the slides. So, oh, sweet. We don't even need mic runners. Cool. You guys can go up there. So if you have questions, we have about 9 minutes, and I'm happy to answer them for you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hey, Shannon.
So I had asked about a while back the proposal piece as far as like when you go through it with them. So this is where it feels really awkward to me. Like,
why does it feel awkward?
Because I feel like, am I reading it to them? Am I letting them read it while I'm on it?
I get you.
So
yeah.
You're
summarizing it, right? And you can make your proposal a little bit more attractive than mine too, right? You can put it in Keynote and kind of walk them through it, but you're just highlighting the big areas, right? So the biggest thing, like on, and I could talk about the web design and development. So what we do is we go, all right, in this section, in this particular methodology or this stage, we're going to do this, and this is how it's going to work, and then this is how many pages is included. And then when we get to the SEO, this is our methodology on this, and this is the plan. You're not just reading it to them.
Okay.
Right? And then you send them the proposals, and then when they actually go back through it, then they can actually read it.
Okay. That helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, over here.
Hey, Jason. Carlos, my marketer. So when you give the proposal, you don't send it until the day of the meeting?
I don't send it until after I review it with them.
So you don't do a screen share so you can read it with them?
Oh, I could, yeah. I'll screen share it, but I'm still not sending it to them, so I control what they see.
Got it. Because in Proposify, at the bottom, it shows like the price, the total price right there. So I could probably give them a sticker shock as well.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to do, that's why I'm like, just walk them through, the online application on Proposify, and then send it to them afterwards. And then you can actually see what they've, gone through, and then they can sign it, and then you have all the awesome reminders.
So then it takes 15 minutes to make the proposal, but you don't want to make them feel like it's going to take you 15 minutes.
Correct.
So how much time do you want to say, give me about 7 days, or how much time do you tell them?
Well, you remember you're going to sell that strategy session, right? And so then you're going to go back and you maybe spend a day. Like, don't be like, how many people have seen Swingers, right? Like, how many days should I wait after I get the girl's number? 5, 3, right? And you just try to look cooler. I can't tell you how many deals I won, big deals, because all the other ones were the Swingers. And I came in, I closed the deal before they even finished their proposal. So do it quick. And sometimes what we would do is we would say, all right, we're going to meet at this time, and then I would just send right after.
All right, so if the person wants to meet tomorrow?
Hell yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'll have the proposal tonight. It's 8 o'clock tonight, but I'll have
as long as it would take you, right? But you got to think, you've already gone through the strategy session with them and presented everything, and you really kind of already have the plan. And then you can, it's quick to do the proposal.
Good to go. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, great talk.
Thank you.
Question on, you had sort of the pricing table with all the things, and can you share your thinking about, how they finance it? Is it like payment plans? Is it retainers? Just talk in general about your thinking.
Great question. So increasing your cash flow is one of your biggest things. And the payment terms that agencies do are most of the time, they hurt you, right? Because what happens, especially on a project, is they'll pay 50% up front, and then they'll take forever to get to you, right? And then you're like, man, there's 50% just out here. How do I get that? And literally, I had well, I'll tell you how I solved it. So we would do 50% as the deposit, halfway through a quarter, or at a certain date, whichever comes first, the next quarter. So it was already planned. So you can go into billing software and say, because you know the clients aren't going to get you the stuff that you need on that date, but you know when that date comes. So if it's a month from now, you could say that's when the next quarter triggers and you charge their card or you send out the next invoice. Now, you can't hide this in the contract. You have to physically walk them through it. And the way to get them to accept it is they're going to come to you and they're going to say, I am going to be the best client ever. I'm going to get you everything on time, and this project needs to be delivered on this date. Cool, Mr. Client, as long as you get me this stuff on this date, this date, this date, and then we'll have your payment terms on this, we'll be able to deliver it. They'll go, yes, because they know that, they think they're going to be your number one client, the only client to do that. And I would do that at the end. The key is having that certain date. Now, I had a client, God, I read this whole. So I sold the agency in 2012, and I did the contract with this client in like 2004 or 2005. He called me up in 2014. It was like, I have all the stuff ready for the website. It's like, dude, man, I don't even own the agency. I don't even know who owns the agency because we got sold and then someone else bought them and then they're public. I was like, go chase the NASDAQ. That's what I was like. So, do the payment terms that way. On the retainers would start after the project. We would bill the month before rather than in the rear. Mm-hmm. No one wants to bill in the rear. That sounds really bad. But then again, I'm naked up here.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Hey, so what about for big companies that you're going into? Do you, what kind of prep do you do? Because I get the thing of they want to see my company profile first, and then they want to have a big meeting with me where they just discuss ideas. And a lot of times I can think on my feet and come up with some cool ideas to kind of bring them in. But then at the end of the meeting, I usually get, well, this sounds all great, but what am I getting? And it's because I haven't gotten to this point yet where I'm giving them the proposal, so to speak. Yeah. So how do you handle that as for the bigger clients?
Sell the mapping session or the blueprint, where you actually give them all the ideas. So basically you would say, look, we're going to meet, we're going to ask you a ton of questions, we're going to see what's working for you, what you want to go do, and we're going to lay out everything. And then what we're going to do from that is we're going to lay out a structure. And when you walk away from this meeting, you can go do this yourself, you can go use another agency, or you can use us.
Okay.
And then I would even do the risk reversal on them and say, look, if you hate it, I'll give you your money back and charge them like $2,500 or $5,000 or whatever. And if you like it, I'll credit it to your account, even though you kind of bumped it up, right? Mm-hmm. But the big companies, they'll ask for everything. It's and they're training you well. Now, if you're working with like Coke just owns you, and they owned me, right? I'm like, okay, Mr. Coke. So it's about who you're going after. But the best clients that we had were like billion-dollar companies that no one's ever heard of. Yeah. That's who I tell people to go. But we use the big clients like LegalZoom and AT&T and Hitachi to be like, yeah, we made it. But you really don't need them. Yeah. That was kind of old school, back then. And agency owners used to like tout themselves like, we work with AT&T even though we make no fucking money.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Does it help?
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
And that's true. You don't make any money from the big ones.
So I have about 10 questions, but I'll ask only 2. So
give me one first, because I won't remember the second or third or fourth.
So if you work with a client through a proposal, you get the part of the proposal that they don't understand. Like, go explain them SEO in a 30 minutes kind of conversation. So what do? You could say, oh, well, you're not going to understand that, so let's skip, or what?
Well, that's why you've done a couple meetings that they've paid for, or that meeting that they've paid for in order to educate them on that, rather than just coming at them blind and being like, here's the proposal, marry me, right? And then that's why you're walking them through it, to make sure that they do understand it. And if they don't understand it, be like, well, don't worry, this is what generates leads. And if they still don't understand it, be like, that may not be the good client for you. You may need to walk away, because then they're not going to understand the value that you're actually delivering to them.
Okay. It doesn't always work with plumbers and locksmiths, but
Well, then they may not be the right client for you, too. Right?
why not? I mean, if they have money and they
Well, yeah, they have money, but it's shitty business. No, I'm just kidding. It's great.
Anyway, the second question is how to avoid, so you want to put all the details in because you want to protect yourself,
Yep.
but it happens often that the client will take your proposal and will give it to somebody else, the very same thing, and will...
It's fine. Okay. I don't care. Like, it's about building that predictable pipeline, too. And if they're kind of the scumbags that will do that, you didn't want to work with them anyway. Yeah. I mean, really. I mean, literally, you're in the driver's seat. You need to pick if you want to work with them. You shouldn't ever be selling, right? You'd be like, can I actually help them? And then actually help them. And that was the biggest difference. So, you know,